Hello everybody, welcome back to part 2 of our fighter solo run. Going over our gear again, we have a couple physical and elemental weapons for different situations, as well as rusted and for torpor and silence, or golden for silence. Moving on to our gear, our helmet is giving us a little bit of extra strength if we're fighting a good number of people, which doesn't happen too often. Our belt is giving us increased stagger, which is very important for us as a fighter. We want to stagger our opponents and knock them down. Our gloves are extremely important. This is giving us increased damage on our shield abilities, which we make excellent use of. Boots are just providing the stability augment, so we don't have to waste an augment slot on that. Cape is just because it's fashionable, it looks cool. Barb nails increase knockdown. Very valuable again, just like that belt was. Ring is for soul, skewer, and sheltered fusillade. And then we have Bloody Knuckle for increased shield damage, which we use occasionally. And then Ring of Desiccation to prevent the drenched status. Abilities-wise, Antler Toss, Hindsight Slash, Fate, or Soul Skewer rather. And then we have Simple Onslaught, Shield Storm, and Sheltered Assault for our shield abilities. And then important augments are Predation for healing 100 health each time. Then standard fighter from then.
Moving on to the final wing, beginning with the Rotwood Depository. I can hear skeletons being formed. That means we have the ghost configuration. You're going to see I'm immediately going to run into this hallway and equip the Cursed Light, because the Wraith, the first one at least, there's two of them here, will always run over here if you run this way. Very convenient. The second one will also drift this way. If we're lucky, I was going to say, that guy actually won't follow sometimes. It is not overly consistent though, so I wouldn't bank on it so much, but you can get lucky. What's nice about this hallway as well, and you just saw me take advantage, is the further you run down the hallway, the more likely the ghost will just let go of you. You can also run towards the door that we came through to enter the Rotwood Depository. And the ghost will often hop off of your head. I take advantage of that because I don't have a pawn to obviously hit my head, and I don't want to just tank a hit from something else, which sometimes will knock ghosts off of you, sometimes it won't. So in this case, we just let it reset off of our head. It also gives us an opportunity to attack it. We've gotten one ghost down already, which is quite good. We just need the second one to drift our way again, and it will, given time. So once we get this one down, we can engage with the Silver Knights. There's actually two of them. One of them will always spawn as you walk into the room. The second one is in the water, and it'll spawn when you start getting close to it. I don't actually know how close you have to get, because I feel like sometimes it's closer than others. You can see it's actually, you could see its shield sticking out of the water there. But yeah, I don't know precisely how close you have to be for it to spawn in, but if you walk close to it, it will spawn in. I don't really want to deal with it until I've got both ghosts down, because then I should be able to deal with the other Silver Knight while that one spawns in. Unless the other Silver Knight reset into like the back room. Sometimes that happens, and then I can kill this one first. And we'll see. Here I should probably put on Fate Skewer Ring, if I don't already. I don't recall. We already do. Okay, good. Yeah, you can see we can just kind of absolutely demolish these guys. Our shield would also be very effective if I wanted to shield bash them, but knowing that one Fate Skewer will kill both of them, or either one of them, is good. Here, I'm going to backtrack this way. I want to see if the Elder Ogre will spawn. The Elder Ogre would spawn basically where that skeleton's on the ground. It can spawn already. It did not, unfortunately. I would prefer to fight the Elder Ogre back here than anywhere else. It's going to be a couple snakes. If I was smart, I would have attached, or I would have equipped Callid Bold so that I could only swing at that first one and it would chain lightning to all the others. but I didn't think about it. I could have switched to Curse Light there. These Vile Eyes are actually weak to Holy. All of the eye enemies are weak to Holy. But ultimately we didn't, because I have so much physical damage. I couldn't remember whether my magic damage with this sword is good enough to overcome the, that was just our shield bash. What the heck? Oh my god. Oh my god. There we go. I don't know where that other Vile Eye went. But anyway, what I was saying was I don't know if our magic damage is good enough with the holy damage to kill them, but I did know that about the melee, or the physical damage sword, so I decided to stick with the physical sword. It probably would have been fine. If it wasn't, it would have only been like a sliver of extra health, though. Here, I'm going to backtrack a little bit just to see if we get the Elder Ogre to spawn back here. Again, I would prefer if it spawns back here. The chance of it spawning, like, increases as things die, sort of. I don't know if it's, like, algorithmically placed that way, mind you. But I have had it where I try to get it to spawn over there and it doesn't, and then I kill more things, then I walk back and it will spawn back there. So it's always worth testing, because if you get it to work, you're happy. In this case, it doesn't. It will likely spawn in the room with the living armor, which is not ideal, but we can... The Elder Ogre will follow us all the way back here, whereas living armor will stop chasing us at a certain point, and then just reset and hang out in that room. So Elder Ogre is a lot easier to just deal with one-on-one than... You know, I make it seem, because I do want it to spawn back there. It's not really a big deal. It's just an added complication if I have to hide it back here, because sometimes it'll get kind of awkward. I have the sword equipped instead of just the shield like we did with the first living armor, because I'm expecting the Elder Ogre, as it did. And so, as I said, we'll run back here. The living armor will often chase you here, but if it goes up the ramp, which it generally won't, but if it does go up the ramp, it'll usually try and leave and go out the door, like it's doing now. Now we should be allowed to just 1v1 this Elder Ogre, as I would prefer. I should be torporing it, but apparently I didn't think that was necessary. I don't want to stand in front of it like that. The reason I don't wish to stand in front of it that way is because the grab attack is pretty much the most dangerous thing for me right now. I can perfect block everything except for that grab attack. Here, I like having Storm Assault, or not Storm Assault, Shield Storm, because it hits that, it instantly will stagger it out of its defensive curl. It's pretty much the only reason I have that ability on the bar, and it works exceptionally effectively. As a Sheltered Fuselage when it's knocked down. I said I should be torporing it because it's generally the tactic I would recommend using, because they are dangerous and they do hit hard. But obviously you don't need to. Like there, we weren't even hit at all, I don't believe. We ended with full health. It doesn't necessarily mean we didn't get a predation for it, right? But it's pretty good. It's a pretty good fight. As before, living armor, generally a nuisance. For us, with this specific setup of using the shield gloves with the double bloody knuckles, we kind of are an absolute powerhouse in terms of fighting them. It's a little bit goofy and unfair, frankly. But like generally that, regardless of vocation, that fight's terrible, except for like maybe Magic Archer. And instead it was absolutely trivialized by Fighter. Which is just not something you tend to expect. So the Forgotten Hall, we have the configuration with 2 Golden Knights and 1 Silver Knight. This configuration has Garm as the carrion beast potential, so if we kill these guys, it's very possible that Garm immediately spawns. Damn. I went for the follow-up hit with our shield to kill that first one. And ended up getting hit for it. Pretty easy. As I said before, Garm can spawn here, so I don't want to bite off more than I can chew, so to speak. We're going to have spiders here. I should switch to Calobolg. That only wasn't super efficient because the lightning didn't chain to all of them, because some of them despawned and then respawned as I walked past. That happens with some consistency. It's kind of annoying. Here we're putting on the Bloody Knuckles, because the eliminators that'll likely charge at me, we absolutely shred them with just our shield damage. The reason we're choosing to use the shield here and not just like everywhere, because obviously we could do a shield only run. But the main reason we don't do a shield only run for most of it, or at least for a lot of the enemies that are weaker, is because the shield itself is not a tactic I enjoy using so much, because it does feel so cheesy. But on enemies that are substantial, like they have good defenses to our attacks, is when I'll choose to use the shield, just because it becomes a very slow fight and it's just not fun. In the case of eliminators, they're actually quite resistant to our good damage. Our sword kind of just doesn't do as much as I'd like. There we were looking at the ring and the gloves again. I do stream these runs live, so that was me explaining it to chat, because someone likely had a question about it. But yeah. You guys should pop in over at twitch.tv/localticobroadhead. It's a good time in the Dragon's Dogma 2 waiting room, just like everybody else. Yeah, see that perfect block did, was that like 85% of a health bar? It's kind of goofy, right? My biggest problem is these, because I can't hit them very effectively with the shield. I might opt to whip out the sword. We'll see. I generally want to kill the Sirens before the Eliminators, if the Sirens do come over here, because the Sirens can heal the Eliminators very rapidly, actually. Like, in a matter of seconds, they can go from almost dead to full health again. But looks like I haven't opted to do that yet. And that's what I'm talking about damage-wise. Like, our damage with the shield is very good against these guys, because we're using, like, 8,000 strength, right? Because we're multiplying 2,000 and change. Actually, it's more than that. It's like 16,000 strength with this shield, sort of. Now it's not, because we equipped a sword, but it's kind of nutty how much damage you get out of it. Because we were doing something close to the math of 2,000 times 8. Which is why just a regular hit with the shield is doing the majority of a health bar. The reason we don't do it all the time is it's just not very satisfying, in my opinion. And we just use it on the fights that become less satisfying for us because they're very tedious. Or living armor, because living armor is just awful. Here we go. Look at that guy. That siren was very nice in sacrificing herself for the greater good. Double breath, huh? Interesting. So because those other two Garm are kind of caught, I don't really have a problem with being over here and fighting this guy by himself. Especially since he likes to run away and come back. It's just going to speed it up. Once again, Shelter Fusillade doing, frankly, incredible damage. Especially since it's very easy to hit these guys' faces because they look at us so consistently. Unfortunately, their jump is also very sudden. That's going to be the big one, though. I'm happy I used iframes on that. I have a hard time perfectly blocking that without being a Mystic Knight. Mystic Knight seems to get... I don't know if this is accurate, but it feels like it's the... I think the name of the augment is Prescience. Looks like pre-science. It's Prescient. Prescience. But anyway, and it increases the effectiveness, or it increases the duration of the window, the number of frames to get a perfect block off. And because of that, Mystic Knight feels easier to get perfect blocks off, and I can generally get that one off with Mystic Knight. But when I play Fighter, I have a very hard time with it. I'm not overly impressive when it comes to using the Fighter. Most of these locations, I'm not overly impressive, frankly. I know some of you think that, for sure. I'm not a slouch, don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to... I'm not here fishing for compliments or anything. I know I'm not a slouch, but there are much better players than I am. I don't know what that guy just did, but I'll take it. That Garm just lost like half its health for some reason. But anyway. But I will often avoid using strategies that I'm not super good at. So instead of trying to perfect block that, which would be the better choice, I chose to use Hindsight Sweep because it was going to keep me safe. And when you guys play, I would recommend that you not necessarily do the same in sense of using Hindsight Sweep instead of perfect blocking that. But what I mean is assess like what you're good at in this game and then try to stick to that script. For me, I know what things I can or can't, like perfect block, and I don't really try to get too far out of it. I'll try a couple times, yes, but like it's not... I'm not going to make myself lose enjoyment of the game by trying to play the game in a way I'm not capable of. Unless I'm specifically challenging myself to do so, of course. That's the difference. That's how I can do perfect blocks at all. You know, I've done shield-only runs for both vocations. I've never done one for Assassin, but I don't know why I would want to do that versus Fighter. Because the shield abilities for Assassin don't really inspire the same way that Fighters does. We're running this way because there's some leap worms we can use to heal. If you are going this way and you're trying not to get hit by the leap worms, if you grab onto this ledge, they spawn. You can just drop down and hit it. The rest of them, you can just either do that, or you can creep forward and swing, because they do spawn in specific spots. There I swung a little bit too late, rather. If I had swung slightly earlier, as we stepped forward, we would have hit them. I could have walked into that alcove and gotten more to spawn. I chose not to. Partially because I remembered that there's more leap worms over here, but more importantly, I remembered that there are spiders in the next room. There's like 6 spiders early. So that's 600 health right there, and we're at 4977. I only need 600 health to be max health anyway. So killing those other leap worms would not have done a whole lot for me. As it stands, I'm going to be more or less full health at the end of this too. Bloodless Stockades, like I said, we have spiders, so we're going to have the Clout Bulg. It's going to chain lightning to almost all of them. But there are two configurations. We don't want living armor, just because if we do, we have a white, which is kind of annoying. Although, realistically, this is probably the faster room configuration for us as a fighter. This white, fortunately, is very kind with its pattern. It will lower itself to the ground to summon these skeletons back, so if we kill all the skeletons, it will give us an opportunity to hit it. And we are going to take advantage of that opportunity. See? Now we can just... generally we don't want this configuration though because of the 2 living armor that are down below. Fortunately for us, we do a lot of damage to living armor with our shield. So it's not honestly a big deal. But ignoring that aspect of being absolutely trolled by these bats. Just missing left and right. But anyway, fortunately, we do good damage to living armor, but they do have 2 vile eyes with each of them. So we will have to deal with them as well, which isn't difficult. They're just kind of another creature to be a little bit annoying to make it just slightly more hectic. But honestly, this should not be much in the way of difficult. I would expect we're going to do our ring swaps right now. And then remove our weapon. Oh, we're going to leave the weapon. Okay, we're probably going to use the sword for... Okay, I don't know what we're doing now. I guess we wanted to try using this shield because we often get the break really quickly on the armor, and then we can't deal any damage afterwards. We do plenty of damage with this shield in phase 1, that it's not overly necessary for us to have the other one at all. There we took some damage. We just kind of played it a little too aggressive. This configuration also has an Elder Ogre that might spawn. Elder Ogre... Obviously, we don't really have too much trouble fighting them. They can be dangerous for sure, but we don't generally deal or have too much of a problem with them. We deal adequate damage. We have a good strategy for them for the most part. If we do start getting on the ropes, we can always torpor it. It's not the most dangerous thing this run has. Now, if I had the sword equipped, I would have Hindsight slashed that so that I could have gotten hidden on the back. Obviously, we don't really need to. It wouldn't have actually changed that moment, just because we did stagger it with the armor breaks, which would have made it stand up immediately anyway. So whether I had gotten the sword out and Hindsight swept that attack or not, the fight honestly would have been identical. But, you know. I did not do those ring swaps properly. It looked like we're still wearing one bloody knuckle. If you manage to knock evil eyeballs down, you can actually grab them with the, just the right trigger, the grab ability. R2. I think it's E on PC. I think it's E. But if you just grab them, you can actually use them to torpor and petrify enemies. Obviously, it's hard for us to knock them down because we do considerable damage. It's unlikely for us to knock it down without killing it. But as you heard, Elder Ogre did spawn, so we'll have to deal with him. But fortunately, there's nothing else in the room, so we get a pretty nice arena to deal with it. We don't have to worry about something like living armor or the vile eyes interrupting us. I kind of wish I had taken a look at our rings during that moment, just because I'm pretty sure I don't have a barbed nail equipped at all. But that's okay. I wasn't sure if we were going to get that grab. As if before, Sheltered Fusillade. Really good damage. I guess I'm going to choose to Torpor. I don't know why I didn't elect to use Sheltered Fusillade. Shield Bash does great damage, but it also does really good stagger. Cymbal Onslaught, I mean. It has a pretty nice stagger build-up. It's not insane, mind you, but it is very good. So because of that, when we had him off balance, I was just punishing with the shield bashes because we were able to knock it over. And then go for the kill. Here, we're just waiting for a little bit of stamina. The next room is definitely by far the most dangerous part of the run. In pretty much any run of Bitterblack Isle. Casually, challenge run, doesn't really matter. They're always pretty scary. Because this is the Sparyard of Scant Mercy we're about to enter, which has 2 dragons. Ideally, we get double frost. 1 frost, 1 fire wouldn't be too bad. Double fire is pretty much just the one thing I do not want. But we'll see. We got double frost, so I'm gonna be happy about that. So generally, when I have double frost, I'll opt to silence 1, and once I have 1 silence, I'll work on hitting the other. The reason for that is because while that one is silenced, he can't cast at me. But if I'm fighting the other one and I get staggers off, it's also not going to be casting at me because it'll be staggered. Here it looks like I'm going to maintain focus on 1, which is kind of not my standard, but it's possible because I know how much damage we actually can do. Okay, here it looks like I changed my mind. I was kind of confused. But you see, the other one can't cast, and if we keep staggering this one, it's also not going to be allowed to cast because it'll be, you know, staggered. Not that staggering it's super quick and easy. It does take a little bit of effort. But if we are successful in doing so, we don't really have big concerns about getting hit by magic. Obviously, 2 dragons rolling around and doing spin to win and all kinds of stuff is going to be a bit of a problem. 1 flying into the air is also not good because it'll eventually fire at me. I'm not a big fan of having... It's not even fire, it's ice. There I saw that I had the correct ring equipped, but I didn't realize I didn't have barbed nails again. So that's a little bit comical on my part. This is a attempted heal. I think it's gonna get it. Ooh, we're very close on that. Unfortunately, we ran out of stamina, so we're gonna get hit by this breath. Oh, wow. Talk about luck. We did lose a lot of health for that fight, though. It looks like I've elected to Torpor this guy. That's unusual. I don't generally Torpor the frost ones, because they're not that scary. But it does have its uses. In my experience, Torporing them is much faster than silencing them. So what I'll often do is get the, and what I'm doing here is I'll get the Torpor first and then I'll get the silence. That way I can ensure I get the silence, because like I said, the silence can be actually somewhat tricky to land. What the hell? Am I gonna shield this guy to death? Is that my plan? I genuinely don't remember that this is how I fought him. I would not generally try to shield these guys to death. I would expect chat probably asked me to. Or I'm just brain dead and not thinking at all. Because we seem to have equipped the shield only rings, and then we're still using our sword. So I don't even know what I'm doing. Unfortunately, hitting this hard, it seems really easy to do, but it is a little finicky. Here, I'm just not doing a very good job of it, but it can be tricky. I think here I'm electing to go the route where I torpor it because I've already lost a good amount of health. And I know the next room can have, it's not without its perils. I don't want to lose too much health with fighting Daimon, because fighting Daimon without losing health is difficult. Here I should change my ring to Sheltered Fusillade. I did not, but I'm already invested, and we have the DPS anyway, so I guess we just go through. So, in this configuration, there would be an eliminator down there. If we had that configuration, we see we do not have one. So that tells me we have the living armor configuration, which means there's only one dragon, and it is a Thunder Wyvern, so the Bitterblack Isle variant of the Wyvern. It's stronger. It's got more health. But ultimately, it's honestly easier, because when it roosts in the middle courtyard, which means we're kind of sheltered by the buildings, because it won't be able to see us when we work our way down here to fight this living armor. When it's the other configuration, there are two Grancis level wyverns, and they roost on top of the roofs of the buildings, and because of that, they will see us very easily. So it's very rare that we can actually work our way through here without them seeing us. It becomes very frustrating. Generally, when I'm solo like this, what I'll do is I'll kill the first couple living armors, and then I'll go and kill the dragon before I kill the third living armor. Sometimes I'll just kill the first living armor and then kill the dragon. Sometimes I'll try and go for all three, but more often than not, I'm going to try and kill these first two, then go do the dragon. Now here, we have really high damage against living armor. So fighting the living armor is not that risky for us, frankly, in comparison to what it normally would be. So we'll probably I would expect that I opt to fight the third living armor, because even if the other dragon notices me, he's going to have to fly into the air and then get into position and then attempt to breathe at me. There's just a high likelihood that we actually just kill the living armor before that point. So I would expect we don't even try and go and deal with the dragon first, especially since if we deal with the living armor, we can put the sword back on and move forward with our lives. Yeah, and we're gonna pull a living armor. I take the lantern off because I'm hoping that it's not going to make the dragon see me, but it doesn't work. Yeah, like I said, it doesn't work. So I'll probably put it on here in a moment. This is probably me replying to chat. Like I said, we do stream these runs live on twitch.tv/localticobrohe. Quite fun. As I said before, we also deal considerable damage to living armor, so by the time the dragon ever gets into a position where he might actually do something to us, we'll have killed this living armor. I don't know what our game plan here is. I also don't know why I haven't turned on the lantern again. I guess I'm hoping to hit the dragon with the shield to knock it down, which is possible. We demonstrated that earlier in the run when we were fighting the one in Duskmoon Tower, but it is a touch frustrating. But with the additional damage we get, it'll be a lot easier to actually hit the stagger, assuming I land a hit. Problem is, landing the hit is just so inconsistent. I would honestly recommend just using the sword. You do significantly less damage and less stagger per hit, but you hit so many more times that it doesn't actually matter. It's kind of better. Not a bad hit. Not a bad hit for one shield bash. That was the shield storm attack. Frankly, Sheltered Fusillade is just going to be better DPS for the most part. Honestly, just doing the shield, was it Cymbal, Onslaught, would actually probably be pretty good damage when we get it knocked down. But again, it's just so hard to get the knockdown with the shield. I don't know why I keep trying it, honestly. But it is, it's also optimal to try and get it with the sword, frankly. So that's probably why I'm trying. But it is, Sheltered Onslaught, or Sheltered Assault, or Fusillade is just remarkable damage against these guys when they fall down. So we'll probably go with that. And this is, as I said before, one of 3 enemies that really frustrate the fighter. Everything else we do really good damage to, and we can kind of smoothly sail through. But ghosts, liches / whites, and dragons are really the 3 enemy types that are frustrating to us. And really, in terms of dragons, it's mostly just the Thunder Wyvern because it flies into the air, and then the Fire Drake because it's just so resistant. And hard to stagger and knock down and whatnot. Fortunately, we didn't have any of those this run. They're not terrible. You just have to hit the wings and stagger them. It's kind of terrible, but it's not dangerous, I guess is what I mean to say. It is kind of terrible, but it's not overly dangerous. But, you know, we'll get it. Eventually we'll knock this guy over. It looks like I've moved on to the sword finally, so we'll knock him down and then we'll move from there. Always a little tilting when it lands and then just flies off because it's like, I would love to do something, thank you. If you're wondering why I don't climb on this guy, it's because I'm awful at climbing. I genuinely do not know how players do it. I'm not very good at that. Earlier, when we were in the Forgotten Halls, I was talking about I play to the strengths that I have as a player, and I know that I have pretty considerable weaknesses, which is why I was not attempting to perfect block some of the Garm attacks, and was instead opting for Hindsight Sweep. Not climbing is the same thing. Interesting, we are going to use the shield. It does great damage, like I said, it's just... Wow, okay, that's actually a lot more damage than I thought. But, Shelter's Assault just feels so good. I don't generally opt for shield only. Shield only here is uniquely valuable, though, because we're going to use the shield on these guys. So, it does make sense. You can pull these guys one at a time, by the way. I have done it before. With a melee character, I mean. But it is so finicky. I think I've maybe done it twice in the 10 years I've been playing this game. I try, like, every single time. Okay, that was just me not blocking at all. Fortunately, he doesn't get to stomp off. That would have been the end of me. In the end of our run, which would have been devastating. Unfortunately, it did a considerable amount of damage there, so we're going to be a little bit unfortunate. Even if I don't get hit from this point on, we're only going to have 3,000 health out of, what is it, 5550? So, it's a lot less than I would want to be playing with, given how much maximum health he can have. But that's okay. It's not the worst thing. Ooh, that guy almost got us. And we have heard Death spawn. Death is not really a problem. He's more of a nuisance. The likelihood that we get killed by Death is generally extremely low. The only room that I'm actually afraid of Death's spawn is really the Tower of Treason's Repaid, because moving away from him is a little bit awkward because of the verticality of the room. But, here it's very easy to avoid Death. Death often gets caught up on the buildings themselves, so it's actually kind of hard to get Death to come to you if you want to kill him. If you're a melee vocation, I mean. So, here we pretty much have all the time in the world to deal with these Eliminators. Alright. Eliminator's done. Eliminator's eliminated. Here, we have the opportunity to find out if killing Death gives us a 100 health for the Predation augment. I genuinely don't recall. I want to say no, but it very possibly could be yes. We should kill Death here because when we fought him in the Garden of Ignominy, kind of cool we had him in the first room and now the last room. But when we fought him in the Garden of Ignominy, he had like 80% of a health bar left, something like that. I think that's where we left off. We'll see in a moment. But, oh yeah, somewhere around there. Actually, closer to probably like 75. But we're at 3047. Let's find out. This is for science. Unfortunately, I do not have 100% sleep resist. The warrior run that I'm currently doing, we did pursue 100% sleep resist. So we do have that on that run. But we do not have 100% sleep resist on this one. Or, it's possible I do have 100% sleep resist and I just don't realize it because I'm so used to not having 100% sleep resist. I don't generally run around with Bitterblack armor. I really only do with high-level armor on Fighter and Warrior because those are the runs that I can't avoid damage very effectively on. Everybody else had kind of the cosmetic armor. And we got 100 health because we were at 3047, right? So I guess Predation works on Death. Unless I'm wrong. I wasn't actually looking. I was looking at his health bar and not like my health bar, which would have been wiser. So I'll have to go back and double check and see if I was right, and then put a note here to say whether I was or I wasn't. But I want to say I said it was 3047, so I'm pretty sure it did work. That's interesting, that we get health from death, but not corrupted pawns. What are the lore implications? Daimon. So Daimon is really scary phase 1. We can perfect block him, so he's not the worst thing. But he is pretty aggressive phase 1. If he grabs us, it does a lot of damage. His punches do a lot of damage. His ice spikes are devastating. We don't want to get hit by any of his stuff. But I will say that it is a fun fight for Fighter. Phase 1 is fun for Fighter. It's one of the few vocations I find it to be fun, but I think it's fun for Fighter. It feels like an honest-to-God duel with someone. Because it's all about you hitting him, getting perfect blocks, being able to hit him again, things like that. Very, very satisfying phase 1. Phase 2, not so much. The big problem with phase 1, however, is that we don't do damage, as you can see. Now, we could Torpor him. But, yeah, we don't do any damage, is the big problem with phase 1. And there's the Torpor. So, we're happy with that. But even still, we're going to switch weapons. And our damage is okay. It's not impressive. Okay. I said I didn't know how people climb. There we got hit the moment we climbed. I was about to say, I'm surprised I climb here, considering we're not full health. I'll usually attempt to climb if I'm really high health. 3,000 health's decent, I will admit, so there was little fear that I would die, but I still normally wouldn't elect to do that. I must have been feeling pretty brave today, or that day. Because like I said, I genuinely don't succeed in climbing often at all. I would like to Torpor him once more before he does Soul Vortex. Not because I want Soul Vortex to be Torpored, because I can't really stagger him out of it. Unless I'm climbing on his head, which I probably won't do. Although, I don't know, we might. But I do want him Torpored out of the next move when he does his defensive curl, because it's advantageous for us. Here, Soul Vortex, we just avoid it by standing behind this rubble. Here we're going to put on one shield with barbed nails, one with the bloody knuckle. Because we're going to shield bash our way out of the stagger. I did say earlier that the shield bashes are pretty high stagger building moves, and that is true. We do want to get the stagger. If we had Torpored in here, we would have had a little bit more time to get this. It's actually really tight for us to get the stagger during this, and we can get it. I don't remember if we do. I do know that when we were doing practice runs of this, there were a number of times where we did not get the stagger. This is one of them. Fortunately, we do pretty good damage with the shield, so we're not overly upset. But unfortunately, Daimon only gets more hectic now. He can cast Collide, he can cast Seism, he can cast Triggers very quickly. His ice spikes are always scary. We got the Torpor off, which is nice. Due to the hectic nature of the fight, it looks like we've opted to go with the higher damage. Or not. There we go. Here, I'm choosing to go with this method. I was kind of confused earlier. We were choosing to not use that method because we didn't want to, we didn't want to use too much stamina at the start. However, here, I'm kind of blowing all of my stamina, so I'm going to have 0 stamina at the start of phase 2, which is not good. Not ideal is what I was trying to say, and then my brain went to good. Not good. That's probably the best opener he could have given us. It gives us time to just recover some stamina. Now, phase 2 is way more resistant than phase 1, so we kind of do almost 0 damage unless we use the shield. And this is why I was saying we wanted to conserve our stamina. I'm not really sure why I decided to climb. I should have just played it slow to let my stamina recover, but that's okay. Because now the only time we're going to deal damage is by consuming our stamina. And honestly, that damage isn't terrible. We're low health, so we're pretty cautious. But that damage isn't bad. Like, in 3 combos, we've done a full health bar. And by combos, I mean, like, using the entire combo that Cymbal Onslaught permits, which is, it's like 4 or 5 hits per combo. That's okay. I mean, I'm okay with that level of damage. There are plenty of times where it's less. If you didn't have this setup and you were trying to do your own fight against Daimon, I would recommend using Sheltered Assault or Sheltered Fusillade if you have the ring. That's generally the move I use on this guy. It is slow, painstakingly so. It is awful. It is not fun. But it does do pretty good damage per second. So the problem is you're just clipping his toenails because that's as far as you can hit. It doesn't really matter for the shield because we get so much of a strength bonus with the shield for the double bloody knuckles plus the gloves with the shield damage. But God, is it awful. Earlier I said we multiplied the damage of the shield, and that is true. I don't actually know if it actually multiplies the damage of the shield or just our main hand and adds it to the shield, however. So I don't really know the calculation of how much strength we get for it. But I do know that it's greater than the strength we have with our sword. And that's the important thing. A lot of people like to get hung up on the numbers, which I love the numbers, don't get me wrong. The problem is the game doesn't really provide them in a way that is accessible. I know that you can download add-ons that'll show you those, but I don't have any add-ons. Not that I hate add-ons or anything. I think they're wonderful. I just never play with them. It's not something I generally do. There we did 2 antler tosses, because I know that if we get 2 antler tosses in and we get a bunch of shield onslaughts afterwards with double barbed nails, we can get a stagger. That's the combo I should have done in phase 1, but I thought perhaps I could have gotten the stagger with just the shield ones because it's phase 1 versus phase 2, but I was incorrect. Either way, we carry the fight through to the end. A bit of a stressful Daimon, frankly. We climbed on him twice, which is, again, not... That was probably me being frustrated with the slowness of the fight, because it's uncharacteristic of me to try to climb, because as I said before the fight, I'm not good at it, and as I demonstrated during the fight, I'm not good at it. But ultimately, you know, we managed to make it through. Solo Fighter's pretty fun run, actually. It's not as bad as it sounds. Really, it's just the flying dragons and flying liches / whites. Even ghosts aren't terrible if you have Acuity and Autonomy. They're not bad. As long as you have the Ascalon or Cursed Light. But with that, I want to thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please be sure to leave a like, subscribe, and all that jazz. Those are fun things to do. Helps me out. But I do stream Monday through Friday over at twitch.tv/localticobrohe. Be sure to drop in. We stream all these runs live, so you can figure out as I develop the strategies I want to use, as well as farm out the gear. And, you know, if you have any questions, feel free to pop in. Thanks for being here, everybody. I appreciate it. Cheers.